Hey, what's up everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com, and in this video I'm going to share with you some music production tips while recreating the beat for Banks' Gimme. So let's get started. So let's focus our attention on the bass line that we hear throughout the beginning and the rest of the arrangement. Now, listening to this bass line, immediately my mind goes to a rubbery, bright type of sound, but it's, almost like somebody put a carpet over it or something. And I know that might sound weird to you, but this is a helpful guide to me as to visualize what it is that I'm listening to, and it helps point me in the right direction as to how to recreate that sound. So I definitely recommend that you do that as well. It's a really helpful way to, when you visualize it, it gives you a better perspective of how to go about recreating it. So I'm going to start by using the wavetable here by Ableton Live, and you could follow along using any two oscillator synth that you might have in your DAW. So let's take a listen to the bass line. Now, like I mentioned, the sine wave itself is a bit too dull. So if we go up from the sine wave to a triangle, maybe even the sawtooth or the square, we might find a better sound to start with. Let's start with the square. And if we use the cutoff frequency to just cut off some frequencies in the higher end, we'll get a nice duller tone. Now, before moving forward, let's change this from polyphonic to monophonic. That way notes won't overlap each other. Cool. Now I'm going to do a little bit of sculpting here with the actual amp envelope. Now this is going to shape the actual performance of the notes. So let's go ahead and bring the decay down a bit and maybe extend the release a little bit and see what that gives us. Maybe just bring the release down a little bit more. All right, and let's go ahead and maybe move the decay a little bit more. Cool. And then we can always just kind of mess around. This is always going to be a little bit nudging here and there, but I think that's a good place to start. And then what we're going to do is layer oscillator 1 with oscillator 2. So let's go ahead and turn oscillator 2 on, and this one we're going to use a sawtooth here. And then going to oscillator 1, let's go ahead and map the filter frequency here. We're going to click on the filter frequency, head over to the matrix, and we want to assign that to envelope 2. We want envelope 2 to be able to control the filter frequency. So let's go ahead and scale this up. Maybe let's just choose a number right around 60, or yeah, that sounds fine right there. And then we're going to go ahead into envelope 2 and then shape this just the same way we did with the amp envelope. And as you can see here, the envelope is opening up that filter frequency. So when you shape this, this is going to determine the response for this filter frequency here. So let's go ahead and bring this all the way down to 20 hertz over here. And now what we'll do is in envelope 2, we're going to shape this up a little bit. So let's go ahead and move the decay over right about, let's just try this and see what that does. And then just opening up the release a little bit of that. Cool. So I kind of like the vibe that it's getting so far. And then what we're going to do is go to the unison here, and we're going to choose classic. And this is just going to double up the voicing here. So I'm going to crank it up to about 7 voices, and we're going to lower the amount here. So it gives that nice chorusy effect. And now we can add a little bit of filter drive, and this is going to add some nice saturation here. So let's go ahead and add some filter drive. And then what I'm going to do is use another filter. I'm going to turn the second filter on. What we're going to do for this is we're actually going to use it to filter out some of that top end. So I will put this one like right here. Let's see what that sounds. But what we need to do is switch it from letting the highs pass, go from high pass to just the low pass. Cool. And now let's add a subharmonic to that by putting the sub on and cranking up the tone here. And let's just give this a little bit of gain, see what we got. Now I'm going to go back to oscillator 1, and I'm going to detune this slightly up. We'll go about 32 cents. And the reason why we're detuning or adding the unison here, the whole purpose behind that is when I hear the bass line in the song, it has this nice wide stereo width. And so one way to accomplish that is by detuning the actual oscillators. You can detune one from the other, and that's what gives it that nice chorusy feel. You can also add some unison on there as we did here. That's the whole purpose behind that. And then I've gone to the LFO1 and just added a little bit of modulation. You can see a little bit of what the filters moving slightly up and down, and that's because LFO1 has been assigned to the filter frequency. And if we go to LFO1 here, we see just a little bit of movement. The rate is barely happening, right? So it's just a little bit of movement. You can see it being represented here. The filter frequency is just kind of fluttering around. So by doing that, this is the total effect we have. Now that LFO is just adding a little bit more modulation and just slight subtle movement up there. So it just gives it that nice feeling like the bass line is just kind of morphing slightly. So let's go ahead and add some compression. So we're going to do a little bit of compression so some notes won't spike out than others. We want a nice, consistent, dynamic performance. So we'll bring the ratio up a little bit, and we want a lot of the body. So I might just take some of the attack of that away and a really quick release. So it gives a nice little bit of pumping going on. And I'm going to go ahead and make up the gain. Just about, that seems good there. And just a little bit more saturation because, you know what, why not, right? So just a little bit of drive. I'll look at 3 dB of drive, and then we'll scale the output back. And then I'm going to use an EQ to finally sculpt the tone of this a little bit. And then maybe just take a little bit of that high end off. So let's go ahead and add drums alongside the bass line. So here we have a drum rack with some sounds loaded, and let's take a listen to the pattern. So the drums are essentially just these 2 elements, the kick and a couple of different layers of snares here. And some processing going on. We've got some EQing just to boost the low end here, this section, and some overall saturation. And I'm using the soft sine. It's actually getting a nice tone with the saturated here, and a glue compressor here to just tighten everything up. Now, when I listen to that gated synth that's happening in the chorus, it's very bright. And so immediately I know I'm going to head over to my sawtooth. So let's go ahead and bring that wavetable back here, and let's choose a sawtooth waveform to start with. And so let's go ahead and take a listen to the chords. Cool. And then we can just shape a little bit. We'll bring the release down here. And getting that classic, lead sound, we'll go ahead and detune the sawtooth by choosing classic and setting the voices to 3. And let's see what we get from that. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and do the gating effect. And for this, I'm going to use the auto pan plugin here in Ableton Live. So I'm going to drop the auto pan right after the synth plugin. Now, what this is typically used for is to pan the signal from left to right. So when I crank the amount, we should hear the synths travel from my left speaker and to the right speaker, and then back and forth depending on the rate. But what we're going to do is choose the phase to go all the way down to 0, so that it's just going up and down. And then what we're going to do is determine the rate, and we're going to go from the hertz to time, right? To the syncing it up with the project. So let's set that at every 16th note. So let's go ahead and adjust the shape. And this is also going to determine the actual smoothness of the transition from when the synth is heard and when it's not heard. All right. So let's go ahead and open up the release back a little bit more. Maybe bring the cutoff down a little bit. And now what we can do is add a little bit of reverb after that, so we have a little tail after the actual gated pad performance. So I'll bring the dry and wet down and lower the decay time a little bit. All right, so I might need to adjust the offset a little bit so I get the right placement of the synth. So let me go ahead and unmute that with the drums and the bass line. So the offset's allowing me to just move where the gating begins, and I'm just doing that till I feel like it's the timing is just right. Now also in the chorus, there's this note that's being accented, almost like this distorted note that's being pitched down along with a nice beefy 808 underneath that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and head over to an 808 instrument that I've created. You can download this 808 instrument, both the sounds and the instrument for your Ableton Live set, in the link below in the description box. So just go ahead and double click this, and let's click, we're going to do D right there. So that's going to be our opening hit right there. So when the drums hit, we have that nice 808 drop happening. And then we're going to layer that with another distorted synth. And let's duplicate the loop and take that second one away. All right, next let's add that distorted synth that I was talking about. So I'm going to use the wavetable here. And we've got, we're just going to play this one note. Let's hit fold here. We're going to choose a sawtooth. And then what we're going to do is go to this bottom section here, and we're going to add the FM. We're going to choose the FM option to add frequency modulations. We're going to do some FM synthesis here, and we're just going to adjust the amount. So let's just, as you can see, the more amount you give, the more, modulation you're doing to the sawtooth. And let's adjust the tuning over here. Let's see what this gives us. So that's kind of cool. And then what we're going to do is allow the envelope to be assigned to the pitch of oscillator 1. So we'll go to the matrix, click semi, and there's the pitch here, and assign that to envelope 2. So I'll put that there. And what that's going to do is we're going to get that pitch bend effect happening with envelope 2. The way this is shaped will determine what happens to the actual pitch of that oscillator. So we can lower this down. So if we wanted a quicker pitch bend, we would bring the decay a lot quicker to the attack. If we wanted a little bit slower, so you can just kind of adjust there by taste. I'm going to do the same thing for envelope 3, but assign that to the tuning of the FM tweaking. So click the tune here, and let's assign that to 3, and let's see what we get. Let's go to envelope here and just adjust this. And what that's going to do is, as you can see, it's going to modulate that right there. That's cool. So now what we're going to do is just use a little bit of the filter frequency to scale that back, and use the second one to maybe cut off a little bit of that low end. add some unison here, maybe with the noise. And then we can go ahead and use in the audio effects folder an amp simulator and set it to lead and just adjust the dry and wet. Let's make sure the output's set to dual since we are using some unison here, and see what heavy does. Cool. Let's listen to that with everything in the mix. Well, I hope this video has been helpful for you, and as my gift to you for watching, I'd love to send you a sample pack that I've created from some of my past projects, including some construction kits, loops, one-shots, transition effects, and these are all yours absolutely free. Just click the link below in the description box. This sample pack works in any DAW. You simply just drag and drop and you're good to go. And as a bonus, they're 100% royalty free too. So feel free to use them and share that music with the rest of the world. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and I'll see you next time.